Welcome back to ACT on Mental Health. My name is Sean Hardy, and I'm a licensed mental health counselor here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Today, we're continuing our 100 Key Points and Techniques of ACT series by stepping into an important layer of acceptance and commitment therapy, which is the broader context of our clients' lives and the human condition itself. ACT isn't just a toolkit of techniques, it's a perspective on suffering, growth, and the meaning that we create within culture. In this video, we'll explore why ACT views human suffering differently from the medical model, how our most basic human needs connect to our psychological struggles, and how cultural forces shape the way that people get stuck. If you've been finding value in this series, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with others that want to learn ACT. By the end of this video, you'll see how ACT frames therapy not as fixing broken people, but as helping individuals reconnect with what matters most. So let's get started. One of the most radical aspects of ACT is its stance that human suffering is not an illness to be eradicated, but a natural part of life. Traditional models often describe anxiety, depression, or trauma as pathologies in need of fixing. But ACT shifts the lens and says that suffering is an unavoidable part of the human condition, arising when normal psychological processes like language, problem solving, and memory turn against us. This perspective frees both the therapist and clients from the heavy burden of believing that something is fundamentally wrong inside of them. Instead, distress is seen as the consequences of being human in a complex, often painful world. From this stance, therapy becomes less about curing symptoms and more about cultivating flexibility in how we respond to those symptoms. The goal is to help clients stop fighting their inner experiences and start engaging in a richer, values-driven life. Now, this approach also reduces stigma. If suffering isn't a disease, then clients aren't broken. They're simply stuck in patterns that no longer serve them. That shift in language and philosophy alone can be deeply empowering, offering clients hope that change doesn't require fixing what's wrong and learning new ways to relate to their inner experiences. While ACT rejects the notion that suffering equals disease, it does recognize that humans have universal psychological and social needs. When these needs go unmet, distress often follows. Think of needs like belonging, purpose, autonomy, and safety. These are not optional extras. They're essential for healthy living, just like food and water are for the body. ACT frames these needs in terms of values. For example, the need for belonging might connect to values of love, family, or friendship. The need for autonomy may show up as freedom, creativity, or choice. When clients feel distressed, it's often because these needs are blocked or distorted by rigid avoidance strategies. For instance, someone may crave belonging but withdraw from relationships out of fear of rejection. By identifying these fundamental requirements and linking them to values, ACT helps clients orient toward what truly matters rather than chasing symptom reduction. It's a way of validating human struggle. Yes, these needs are real, and yes, the pain of unmet needs is genuine, while also pointing forward to the possibility of living more fully, even in the presence of pain. ACT emphasizes a profound but simple reframe. Clients are not broken, they're stuck. This perspective changes everything about the therapeutic process. Instead of searching for what's wrong with a person, ACT looks at how they may be trapped in repetitive, unworkable cycles of avoidance and control. For example, someone might cope with anxiety by withdrawing from social situations. While this strategy may bring short-term relief, it reinforces the idea that anxiety is unbearable and must be avoided. Over time, the avoidance shrinks their life and fuels more suffering. The issue isn't that the person is defective, but that their strategies, once adaptive, are no longer serving them. Seeing clients as stuck rather than broken fosters compassion and empowerment. It places the therapist in the role of a guide rather than a fixer, helping clients experiment with new, values-based actions. This stance also normalizes struggle. After all, most of us get stuck at some point. By shifting from a defective model to a process model, ACT helps clients move away from shame and self-criticism. They can begin to see that change doesn't come from fixing who they are, but from learning more flexible ways of responding to life's challenges. In ACT, the therapist's stance is as important as the techniques that we use. Instead of being the expert who diagnoses and fixes problems, the ACT therapist takes a position of openness, curiosity, and collaboration. Therapy becomes a shared journey with both therapist and client as fellow travelers, exploring the terrain of human experience. This stance is rooted in compassion. The therapist accepts the client's suffering without judgment, while modeling the very processes that ACT teaches. So mindfulness, acceptance, diffusion, and values-guided action. For example, when difficult emotions arise in session, the therapist can gently acknowledge their presence rather than rushing to eliminate them. This not only validates the client, but also demonstrates that emotions can be noticed and allowed without control. The therapeutic stance also involves humility. Rather than claiming to have all the answers, ACT therapists trust in the processes of learning and discovery. They create space for clients to experiment, stumble, and practice new skills, knowing that growth is rarely linear. Ultimately, this stance communicates a powerful message. The client is not broken and does not need fixing. They are a whole, capable human being who can learn new ways of engaging with life. The therapist's role is to walk alongside of them, supporting and modeling flexibility every step of the way. Every client brings not only their personal history into therapy, but also the influence of their broader cultural context. Culture shapes beliefs, values, language, and even the way suffering is expressed. ACT recognizes that these cultural layers are not obstacles to therapy, but important contexts that must be honored and integrated. For example, in some cultures, openly discussing emotions may be seen as a sign of weakness, while in others, community support and collective identity are highly valued. A therapist practicing ACT doesn't impose a universal set of norms, but instead works with the client within the client's cultural framework. Values clarification becomes especially meaningful here. Helping clients connect with what matters most to them in the context of their heritage, community, and personal identity can be really, really helpful. This cultural humility protects against the risk of misunderstanding or pathologizing behaviors that may be deeply rooted in tradition. By situating ACT processes within cultural meaning, therapists can make interventions more relevant and empowering. In this way, ACT offers not just a psychological toolkit, but a flexible framework adaptable across different cultural worlds. One of the ongoing challenges in modern therapy is the tension between ACT's process-based view of suffering and the medical model of mental health. This medical model emphasizes diagnosis, categorization, and symptom reduction. ACT, on the other hand, is less concerned with labels and more focused on how clients interact with their experiences. This doesn't mean that ACT rejects the medical model. Instead, it seeks balance. For some clients, a diagnosis provides relief, clarity, and access to resources. For others, it risks reinforcing the idea that they are broken or defective. ACT therapists can use the medical model pragmatically, acknowledging its utility while also reframing suffering as part of the human condition, not merely a disorder to be fixed. The beauty of ACT is that it shifts the focus from symptom elimination to values-based living. A client with depression, for example, might still experience sadness, but they can learn to engage meaningfully in life instead of waiting for symptoms to vanish. In this way, ACT complements rather than competes with medical frameworks, offering clients a path forward even in the midst of struggle. In this video, we've seen how ACT reframes human suffering, not as a disease, but as part of the universal human experience. We've looked at the importance of recognizing fundamental needs, the idea that clients are often stuck rather than broken, and how a compassionate therapeutic stance opens the door to meaningful change. We also explored how culture and the medical model shape the way that we understand and respond to suffering. All of this gives us a deeper appreciation of the environment in which therapy takes place. But understanding context is only part of the picture. In real world practice, therapists must constantly make choices: how to pace the sessions, which processes to emphasize, when to introduce a metaphor, or how to balance flexibility with structure. That's where we will be in our next video, making decisions in practice. We'll turn from the broader context of ACT to the moment by moment choices that shape therapy. You'll learn how to use ACT's principles as a compass for decision making, ensuring that your interventions remain grounded in processes while responsive to the client's needs. Remember, your journey towards a more purposeful and mindful life begins with a single click.